You're listening to 15 Minutes, where we feature community leaders sharing what the rest of us should know but likely don't.
Hello, everyone. Michael Renfro here. I'm the host of 15 Minutes, Share Your Voice, where we talk with top-notch law firms and lawyers about what it takes to grow a successful law practice. This episode, as usual, is brought to you by Gladiator Law Marketing, where we deliver better intellect. I'm kidding. Where we deliver better speech. I'm kidding. Where we deliver tailor-made services to help you accomplish your objectives and maximize your growth potential. Just a quick tidbit: in order to have a successful marketing campaign and make sure that you're getting the best ROI, you really need to make sure your firm is actually the best website and has the best content. At Gladiator, we use artificial intelligence combined with machine learning. And then on top of that, over a century, I've actually added up over 125 years of combined experience specific to law firm marketing to outperform that competition. To learn more, simply go to gladiatorlawmarketing.com. That's gladiatorlawmarketing.com. You can schedule a free consultation there where we actually do a full audit for you at no cost. That's about a $2,500 value. And with that, today's guest is yet another interesting attorney with yet another interesting background, as they all seem to have, at least the ones that I've interviewed so far. Today we have DeAnn Chase from Chase Law Group. And DeAnn, what practice area and where are you joining us from?
So my law firm serves as outside general counsel for small to medium-sized companies. Mm-hmm. So we actually cover a broad range of practice areas, everything from entity formations, trademarks, contracts, employment, franchising. So we do a lot under one roof. And I'm located in Manhattan Beach, California. So that's SoCal.
Okay. So that it kind of sounds like almost like an outsourced in-house counsel. Like you're in-house counsel for a lot of these companies, but you don't actually work in their office, but you kind of do the same things that in-house counsel would do. Am I hearing that correctly?
Yeah, for the most part. I mean, a lot of our clients are actually entrepreneurs, so they don't kind of understand the concept of outside general counsel. Right. When I'm speaking to an audience of lawyers, they kind of get it. But when I'm marketing, I don't usually market myself as general counsel as much as I just say I take a holistic approach to the law and helping entrepreneurs with their business needs.
Which is actually awesome because I've already gathered that you yourself have the entrepreneurial spirit in you. So why don't we go ahead and get right into it? How did that get started? How did you, and when I say that, I'm referring more to the practice and currently what you have. How did you get started doing what you're doing today?
Sure. Yeah. So, I've practiced in all kinds of different types of environments. So, for example, my last semester of law school, I worked for the DA's office. And then, But coming out of law school, I stepped into an insurance defense job, working in a big downtown law firm. And I practiced exclusively insurance defense litigation for the first 10 years of my career.
Oh, goodness.
I got, put in, and then I stepped off partnership track really when we were focusing on my husband and I were focusing on our family. And I started my practice, this law practice in 2007. So I'm celebrating 15 years this year.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's an
very
awesome.
Very proud of that.
Yes.
But
if you make it 3 years, you got to be proud of it these days. Right?
I know, right? Yeah. So 15 years. But really, when I started the practice, the idea then and now is really to help business owners to avoid a lot of the situations that I saw in the courtrooms. Right. So
things you had already experienced and kind of had an idea of both sides really by that point.
Yeah, I remember being in front of a jury in Santa Monica with a client who had sent an email and that email ended up like blown up as an exhibit, highlight, with letter with, sentences that he wrote, right, highlighted in front of the jury. So it was really sort of what not to do.
Right. How not to handle things.
Yeah, really not the best tactic. But the thing is that these entrepreneurs and business owners, when they're trying to do things on their own, they're trying to avoid the cost of paying a lawyer. So I always say they don't know what they don't know, but they really have to be kind of in the right place to be ready to hear that and accept it.
Yeah, I think one of the downsides, as I'm an entrepreneur, and I've done a few businesses at this point, and the one thing is you don't know you need an attorney in that situation until you unfortunately need an attorney, and then you're like, oh man, I could have avoided all this had I taken a few precautions. There's just so many things that you can do that really it seems like it costs you a lot of money, but ultimately it's going to cost you 5, even 10, maybe even 20 times more the amount later if you didn't have the attorney or didn't have the attorney in the beginning. So.
It's absolutely true. It's absolutely true. And yet they say prevention doesn't sell sometimes, right? And sometimes it's hard, and it's really difficult for us as lawyers when the media and the marketplace are saying, you don't need a lawyer, you can do it yourself. Right.
And that's, what people don't understand is all that is their marketing to sell their product so that you come to buy them. It doesn't mean, and I've been trying to tell this to people for years, just because they're saying it's the truth does not mean it's the truth. And they don't have to speak the truth in order to have a legitimate commercial air, right? Because if it's opinion based, then there's a lot of leeway. And I know you understand what I mean by that.
Oh, sure.
Everybody can go out and say they're the best.
Yeah, but you know what? We can't get around, and here's the thing: we can't get around the fact that 4 million, the recent commercial said 4 million people have started their business on a particular online DIY legal resource.
Yep.
And really, for me and many lawyers that I know, we say, well, okay, there's 4 million people that have a lot of issues in front of them, and they really need to kind of work with a lawyer to figure out all the mistakes and all the things that are missed in doing it themselves. But we as lawyers, I really feel we need to stop trying to fight, fight against some of the things that we just can't anymore. Where, they can, clearly they're trying to sell their product, but you know what? People are buying their product. And we as lawyers need to be innovative and creative. I
think there's ways you could use it. And what I mean by that, I did that, like I said, and I'm actually doing 2 new projects right now. Mm-hmm. And this time I'm actually using an attorney to form my LLC. I don't want to go down the hard roads of not knowing the right answer when it comes to filling out that daunting form. Right. And, what I can tell you is it seems like there would be a way. I think one of the innovative ways that might work for attorneys in general, right, is maybe try to find a partnership with some of these companies that are doing it where, because here's what happens. I'll just give you an example. When you have a problem like that, and let's say you use one of those big names, well, the first place you're going to go to if you have a problem is that big name that you originally got the paperwork, and it seems like there would be a potential there for having a partnership where somebody comes back and they would have an attorney in that area, as well as that geographical area where those people are. So it really could give them the opportunity, in my opinion, to have like a whole network of attorneys that are working with them instead of working against one another. And I have found this throughout life. When I worked with the people I thought was competition, my business didn't double, didn't triple, but quadrupled every time I joined up with what I thought was a competitor in one way or another.
Yeah, I think that is, that's really something that we as lawyers need to keep in mind. We're lawyers, right? So we're control freaks and we're very competitive, and lawyers are very much, I know, what a surprise, right? What a surprise. So it just kind of, it goes to show that we as lawyers do kind of have a certain hesitancy about reaching out and working with others that we would consider to be
considered competitors. Yeah.
Even like people who are practicing in the same practice area as us. There's still kind of this.
There's always room for partnership. I have found though, and what I mean by that is, so let's say you find somebody who's like a direct competitor for you, right, in town. There may be a couple of things that they really do incredibly well. And then there's some things that you do incredibly well, but it's more of a balance thing where you can at times either share a client or inevitably even trade a client. Be like, this is going to fit much better for you. And, of course, that does take a lot to work. You have to have someone on the other side that obviously sees the same benefit and the same value of what you're bringing to the table. And, I know that most people don't always share those thoughts, but I truly believe that, it's kind of that old adage, make your enemy your friend, because you'll actually find out that there's more benefit to that. And I don't mean in a bad way. I don't mean underlining, how do I say, in a backdoor kind of way, but if you get to know them, one thing I firmly believe is that most people that we consider maybe enemies or not like us, if you actually talk to those people, you're still more than 70-75% in common with them, because you're a human.
Yeah.
Right. It's just a few key differences that kind of keep us apart. But I think, here's the thing. You're saying that, and, you're a young and up and coming attorney. And I mean that because you're not nearly as old as some of the folks I talk to. Right. And
well, I'm holding my age well.
Well,
I have been practicing law 25 years, so I'm a 96 law grad.
Well, fair enough. But you're still, you still got probably 20 years left. And that means you can help and influence the generation coming up. If more attorneys thought like you, there would probably be more and better collaboration amongst the arena.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that lawyers have to change. They have to change their frame of reference. I mean, they really have to step out of the traditional law firm structures and models and think creatively and work together.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I do truly believe that a lot of lawyers are almost becoming obsolete in the face of these gigantic, media companies and what have you. And a lot of us, I'm on, member of local bar associations and listservs and talking with other lawyers, and lawyers, kind of grumble amongst themselves about how bad it is for the public at large. But it's really up to us to change our ways. And like an example is it's just basically, that hourly billing model that so many of us are tied to. And I'm like, hey, I'm as guilty as any other. I'm running my law firm. I'm an entrepreneur myself. But that hourly billing model is really, really difficult for our clients. And so it's
slightly outdated in today's atmosphere in many ways. Not, I won't say every single practice area, but definitely some lend itself to be let go of more than others.
Right, more than others. And I think that is something that's kind of been ingrained to us. I mean, I say as a baby lawyer, I was billing in 6-minute increments.
Right.
And frankly, I still do. I still have a component to my practice that is hourly, but I've really been striving to create, recurring revenue models that provide benefit to, obviously, to me from a business perspective, but to the client, so they have certainty of knowing, how much things are going to cost, because that's what they want to know. How much is it going to cost? And for the lawyer, the benefit of some of the programs that I've created is we also don't have to keep track of our time in 6-minute increments, or we don't have to send that invoice.
It's less stressful for you too.
Right. And wait for the client to come back and say, oh, I didn't realize, I thought it was simple. I didn't realize you were going to spend that much time. And we were only on the call for 5 minutes, not 6 minutes, and, different things like this. So I've really been working to create these programs for business clients that provide certainty in their cost, and also it helps on the administrative side of the law practice.
No, I can totally see that, and I'm a fan of the newer model that really started, and I won't mention them by name. I don't even think their original name anyway. But the model that started back in the 90s, where you pay a low monthly fee and have access to attorneys, their information. If you need them for a case, you already have discounted rates. Right. That model is continuing to become more and more attractive to me for both sides. One, you have a fixed cost and know that only when, something truly arises are you going to spend more, but you're not going to spend what you would have if you were not consistently paying this fixed cost and have that relationship in place. So, and for the attorneys, like you said, it's less stressful. It also, in my opinion, opens up for the attorney to truly care more about their clients that they're talking to, rather than the time that they're talking to them.
No, it's true. That's another thing with the traditional hourly model is it really does interfere with the attorney-client relationship.
Right.
Because
if you're thinking about it.
Yeah. I mean, well, and here's the thing. I mean, if you're billing, I say it's like getting in a taxi cab and kind of watching that
right,
meter,
watching the meter,
right?
Yeah,
As
exactly.
opposed to a lot of us, Uber, what have you, we get in the car, it's on our credit card, we're not watching the time tick. So for lawyers and their clients, what happens is if you're billing by the hour, then your client knows that, and so they talk fast and they don't want to talk about their kids and
Right.
things because how many times have I heard? Yeah, I mean, how many times have I heard? Oh, I talked to my lawyer, and then they billed me for the time when they were talking about their kids or soccer games or what have you.
Right.
Or I've been on a call with a client and say, okay, I have 3 things to talk about. 1, 2, 3.
Right. Yeah. It allows you to be informal with these folks, get to know them, better serve them, right? Because I mean, I think I get the feeling that you kind of agree on the concept too, that like the original concept of attorneys was to serve, right? And a lot of attorneys,
Sure.
I think lose that, like the same way with police, for instance, right? The old adage was to protect and serve. And you don't really see that necessarily as much or feel it as much from, I should say, modern day police and all attorneys. And I don't mean that in a bad way to you. I'm just being, with what I see. And I have a lot of attorneys speak on that notion too. They're like,
right.
I try to remind myself.
Yeah, I mean, I'm married to a cop, full disclosure. But it's a similar idea of, people generalize all cops are bad, yes. All lawyers are scum.
And all salesmen, by the way, we're all car salesmen. It doesn't matter what we sell, we're car salesmen. It doesn't matter what practice area you are, you're an ambulance chaser. There's these things that go with, and nowadays, if you're a cop, then you're obviously somebody who beats everybody. I mean,
right, exactly. Yeah, and it's just like anything. The kind of the vast number of lawyers are really concerned. We do, yes. Strive for integrity and compassion.
It's part of the job.
Follow our ethical rules, and and shout out for the cops out there who put their lives on the line every day. They're out there literally taking bullets and on our streets, and they're really, and they're looking to protect the victims and their families and to find justice. So, but unfortunately, it's those bad apples out there.
Literally, I was literally going to say it only takes one freaking bad apple
to hit in front of the media.
Because nowadays, that saying is never more true than it is today, because one bad incident blows up into a viral video, literally, depending on how bad it is, within hours to minutes.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
And blown out of proportion, I might add, because there's one thing I try to remind I have nothing but boys. God did not bless me with any girls, probably because he knows who I am. But I do have 5 boys that call me dad. And one of the things I preface to them since I can remember is that there's 2 sides to every story. And you have to remember that. Like, you really have to remember that when you're, not you personally, by the way, but whenever anybody's upset or when, I'm feeling angry, I try to remind myself, hey, there's another side to this story, and I'm not obviously experiencing that side, but it also means that, I have to take into account what they're feeling, what they're seeing, and how they're reacting. And, I think the more we do that in general and remind ourselves that there's, as simple as it is, 2 sides, then you come back to, okay.
Right. And I think that's why really so many of our clients want to work with a lawyer. I mean, they said, look, if money were no object, I'd want to work with staff. Right. They would want to know that there's someone on their side. But a lot of times, it's really, it comes down, unfortunately, to cost,
Yes,
and, you can, as a lawyer, you've got a brand new lawyer, for example, may start up a practice just down the street. They basically say, oh, I'm cheaper because I don't have the same amount of overhead or what have you. Right. Well, as a lawyer with 25 years experience, I say, well, that's fine, but that lawyer is going to take 3 hours to do something I can do in 5 minutes, right? I mean, that lawyer may spend 2 hours researching an issue that I already know the answer to because I've been practicing so long. So
I was about to say, a lot of it comes down to experience too. It doesn't matter that I might be cheaper. What am I getting? You always have to look at what are you getting for that money? There's a reason that it's something that's less than something else. There's always a reason.
Absolutely.
Yeah. No, I completely concur on that one. And I also will say, it's really true with everything. I deal with that. And I won't, not to mention what I do, but I deal with that even in the partners that I take in my job where, someone will outbid me and I'm like, yeah, but what are you getting for that? How much experience do they have? And is their experience specific to what you're trying to do? Right. Because I taught, like, just for instance, SEO is SEO. And a lot of people think it's the same for any type of business. And that's far from the truth. Just in the simplest of terms, it really is not the truth. Every business has to be done and taken a little bit differently. Law is one of the biggest ones.
Law in particular. Yeah.
What do you think has been in that frame of mind? What do you think would be, so let me make sure I ask this correction or ask this correctly. Looking at both a pitfall maybe or a mistake, a challenge, whatever you want to call it, right? What do you think was the one that you learned from most that in turn, not only you learned from most, but gave you the most traction and had the best result on the back? Does that make sense?
Does that make sense? Well, let's see. I think as far as what has given me the most traction, I'd say what has given me the most traction, and particularly from an advertising and marketing perspective, is reaching out to your local community.
Right, being local.
Yeah, being almost hyper local, especially, and you're the marketing guy that can talk about SEO and different things like that. But on my end of things, what I found where I got the most traction, particularly, for example, when I was first starting my law firm, I put an ad in our local publication. And I would get so many people that would call me from that publication, or if I was out in the community and someone would say, where do I know you from? After a while, and then we realized it was from that ad. So after a while, I'm like, okay, do you read this local, in the South Bay, it's Beach Reporter? And they're like, oh, that's it. So what I would recommend is, joining your local chamber of commerce, and really tightening up, volunteer for community organization and show that you care about people and you care about your community. So for me, I think that is what's given me the most traction, I think, when I've been growing my law practice, is really whenever I've really reached out locally.
Awesome. Thank you. What would you say your proudest moment is then?
Well, my proudest moment is actually something that a lot of people who are not legal probably wouldn't get as much, but basically, it's hard to describe, but basically, I handled a case from when I was doing insurance defense. So when I was a litigator, from the time the complaint came in, I defended a lawsuit. I prepared motion for summary judgment. I got denied. And then I prepared all the appellate documents and I filed, for a writ. The writ was accepted. I prepared all the appellate documents. I argued it before the appellate court. And I got an opinion, a published opinion, where the court basically remanded it back to the trial judge to basically order summary judgment in favor of my client and save my client, millions of dollars. But awesome. So that's kind of like, the pinnacle.
Yeah, but I get it. Like you handled it from the moment the call came in all the way to its volition and essentially got what you were fighting.
Yes. In the end, the client was literally saved millions of dollars. But what I'm proudest about, I think, is that I handled it through, we as lawyers, we specialize sometimes, so much. So I handled that case through just being a general litigator coming into a case to handling the appellate documents. And, so a lot of times people say, oh, that's an appellate lawyer does that, or, litigator does that.
Goes off to somebody else. Right.
But then I'd say the second most proud moments really of my career are when I have someone, like I run into, a business owner at a local chamber event or the grocery store, or whatever. And they're like, this is my lawyer. Yeah, you need to call DeAnn. This is my lawyer. Right. And that's anytime that happens. And it happens pretty frequently. That I'd say is something I'm really, really proud of, is for me and for our law firm. It's really about the relationship with the client and not just, okay, we're going to help you through this transaction and then off you go.
No, I completely hear that, where it's what I'm hearing that you're proud of is the fact that someone is not pointing you out, not saying you're there. It's the way they're saying it. Like, you need to meet this person. They've done me nothing but justice. this is my attorney.
Right.
Yeah, I could see how that. I've had a few moments like that in sales. I can just say that, and those have been some of the most proud, some of my proudest moments where that I thought you were going to go in a different direction. Just so you know, I thought you were going to come back and tell me how your past clients have, you run into them and they're like, oh, I want to tell you how much you meant to me, which I'm sure you have those too. Sure. Those have been, for me, I can tell you some of the proudest is when, how do I say it? I've convinced somebody who really didn't want to give me that try, and then they go ahead and give me that try. And then 3 years later, they're like, man, one of the best decisions I ever made was giving you the opportunity. So that sounds like it's probably very similar to that.
Very much.
What's some of your daily rituals that you would find most important for a typical day?
So I think it's really, for me, it's about controlling my calendar. It is so easy to become overwhelmed. So what I do from a scheduling perspective is I have an assistant that handles all. Well, number one, I have an assistant that handles all my calendaring. Right. That's the biggest thing I tell lawyers: do not handle your own schedule.
You delegated.
Don't answer your phone, and don't handle your own schedule. But anyway, but what I do though is I don't book anything before 10 a.m.
Gotcha.
And so, unless, there's always the exception if someone's,
there's always the exception.
Zone, or there's always
I have the same rule. I don't book anything before 10. Everything before 10 is internal, catching up, planning my day, all that kind of thing. I don't want to deal with a new client or even an old client or a potential client.
Yeah. So that's one thing, is I don't schedule anything before 10 a.m. And for the most part, I try not to accept calls or kind of things that jump onto my calendar, so if someone calls or I get an email saying, oh, I want to talk to you or what have you, I'll usually say, tomorrow or the next day. I usually really do try to, I spend the time in the morning is kind of, one of the things they say not to do is check your email. I always check my email. I check my social media, I check my email, I make sure there's no emergencies. It's like you sometimes you have to do what works best for you. But I spend the time in my morning getting ready for my day. I check my calendar, can I wear my jeans today? Right. And then I don't let it get off track by, I have a call that and it's an emergency is one thing, but like just because someone wants to catch up or a client has a question, that's not necessarily urgent. And,
they may find it urgent, but it's not.
Right. Well, everything, but here's the thing. Everything is urgent to them.
Oh, right? that was literally what I meant. Like, they will find it urgent because they need to know right now.
Right. Yeah. Well, but again, that's you as a business owner, and lawyers are business owners, you need to control the expectation.
Absolutely.
Right. Not everything is an emergency. I say, I want my clients to feel like they're my only client, but they're not my only client. And the way that you do that is you control the expectation. As a lawyer, I don't respond to, I can't help myself from looking at the email, but I don't respond to emails usually after 5 p.m. And I don't respond to emails on the weekends because I really am trying to kind of control the expectation of the client. I don't give my personal phone number. Like I saw in one of these business things, someone was like, do you put your cell phone on your business card? Hell no. I don't take calls on my cell phone. And if I do, I say, hey, just for future reference, if you could just, reach out to me through the law office, because that way, that's the way you're going to get the quickest.
Just for future reference, lose this number.
They're not. Delete.
Yeah. Don't make me have to change it.
Right. Because people are like, we talk about daily rituals. People are like, oh, right. I meditate or I do these things. I don't do that. But,
we actually share a lot in common there. What I mean by that is you said something I just want to point out.
Yeah.
I've always found that my mantra MO for success has been, I see what the most successful person is, right? And that always means that there's rules and processes to follow and all that good stuff. But what I found is that breaking the rules is my best avenue towards success, because I stand out. And when I'm doing things differently, even down to the things that maybe my potential partners or workmates, whatever the case may be, don't even see, it's the fact that I'm doing all these little things differently and not the norm. that I continue to believe, because it hasn't, the more I follow suit with that, and the more I how do you say, take ownership of that concept and being different, the more successful I continue to become. So.
No, it's true. I mean, I think it's important to know kind of what the standards are.
Yeah, and then you work your own. Then you find your standards.
But it's ultimately, you're right. You have to do what works best for you. You can't try to fit into someone else's mold.
It's like that old, I know you've had the conversation where someone says this to you, or maybe you even said it to them, look, I'm going to give you this experience. Take what you like and leave the rest behind. Because what works for you. And there's no way that what works for the world works for everybody in the world. And that's one of the things where I get tired of hearing, like, this is what works for everybody. You can't say that about anything, because I can give you 5 examples out of my personal friends and family that break every rule that anybody ever says this is what works for everybody. So, again, it comes back to what works for you and finding your way within the existing process, I think, is what, I usually do myself.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd say something else that does work for me, though, is that I do take, like, at least I try at least quarterly to take a personal retreat. And that can be like, literally, it could be like taking an afternoon or a day or something like that. But I think it is really, really important for us to keep the big picture in mind. I think sometimes we get so sucked into the day-to-day of our practice and our clients. Like you said, every client feels like their situation is urgent, and
different. And nobody else is like
right?
it.
The snowflake concept. But but as business owners, we need to take control of our time, and we need to keep in mind, you may understand this, but sometimes one of the hardest questions is, what do you want? Right? What do you want? Like, where do you want to be at the end of the year? What are you spending all this time in your practice for?
Right. All this is not just to have a practice. There's something, that's why I always tell people when when you ask somebody what they're doing something for in sales, right? Many times the answer is that they're doing it because they want more money, particularly marketing, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of folks will take that first answer and be like, okay, great, you need more money. And they don't ever talk about it. It's never more money. That's what actually people don't understand, is money is the programmed answer that you give to hide the pain of what that money is going to do. And to give you, for instance, just a quick example, a guy used to sell training for IT folks, right? And so I asked the guy, I was like, you want this certification because you said you want to get an extra $10,000 a year, and this certification will absolutely do that for you, right? He's like, yeah. I was like, what are you going to do with that 10 grand? Oh, I'm going to put an extra room on there. Again, some people would stop there. I'm going to put an extra room on the house. Seems like a worthy reason, right? There's no pain in that. I ended up asking him enough questions to find out that his mother-in-law was moving in 6 months, and he does not want to talk to this woman. He doesn't want to know her, right? Simply put, I use this example over and over because the reality is the pain that I need to concentrate on and that I needed to know about in order to get him the training he wanted and needed was that he doesn't want to deal with his mother-in-law and wants a copacetic relationship when she moves in with him, his wife, and his family, right?
Well, but I do think also just taking it to the point of particularly, attorneys with families and kids and that sort of thing, right? Where we work so hard because we want to give our kids the best education and all these sorts of things. But then what happens is sometimes we work so hard that we're not spending time with our kids at all.
Amen.
And, and the time just goes by so fast. And so that's really something that was important to me. And that's kind of why I stepped off partnership track in the big law firm and started my own firm. Is I said, look, I want to go to I want to drop my kids off from school. I want to pick them up. I want to go to their little programs in the middle of the day and be able to control our time. So
I don't want to be the parent that says I'm going to be there and you're looking and that they're not there.
And I mean, look, we can't all have the luxury, right?
Oh yeah, no, I get it.
That.
I'm not putting anybody down.
But I do think that we need to, I really do believe that we could have every waking, breathing moment of our life sucked into our law practice. We can always be thinking, we can always be working on something for a client, but we really need to step back and take our time, take control of our time and say, I don't, just create a rule. I don't take, my kids' soccer practice is on Wednesdays, or my kids' games are on Friday afternoons. I just don't take appointments after 2:00 on Fridays, period. You let your staff know. I don't take appointments after 2:00 on Friday. And guess what? They don't book you. Right. And you go to the game, and you don't be checking your, and I guess I'm kind of on a rampage about this right now, because I just sent my youngest off to college. So I'm a proud mom. I've got a junior at UCLA, and my son is going to be playing baseball at LMU. So I'm really just kind of at that point where I look back over the past 15 years where I've had my law practice, and I'd have to say, I took the time, I set the rules. I said, I'm just not available. The client doesn't need to know that you're going to your kid's soccer game.
No, they just need to know you're not available.
You're just not available.
You're an attorney.
And so I was just not available after 2:00 on most days.
How many attorneys are available all the time? In fact, it should be a common thread that most of the time you're fighting to get on that attorney's calendar.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And don't have to worry if your lawyer is always available for you.
Yeah, if your lawyer is always there answering the calls and talking to you when you need them, you should seriously consider why
that is. Right.
Yeah. Why?
They say it looks good. I don't know if it's like playing hard. Yeah.
Yeah. I called at 11 o'clock at night thinking I'd leave a voicemail, Tom. Why are you answering?
Why are you answering the phone? Well, there is something too, being a little hard to get, right?
Right. It's called building the mystique, right? I mean, if you keep a little bit of mystique to you and still let people in, and you can do that. Look, sure. I love you. I enjoy our time. I'm sorry that I can't answer the phone every time and be on every call that you'd like me to be on. But unfortunately, guess what? I have this whole other life with work and a whole bunch of other clients. And I do have kids and a family that I also take care of. So I'm trying to balance all that stuff. And I hope you understand, Mr. Consumer. And most of them, quite frankly.
That's TMI. I just say, I'm just not available.
Oh, yeah. No, for an attorney, you can do that. I'm a little bit different. And what I mean by that is I'm very transparent. And as a salesman, I feel like the more transparent I am, the better, considering our bad rap that we get as a profession. So I just tell them, and I let them know, like, look, I'm a family man. Being that I work with only attorneys, put yourself in my position, that actually works out well, because then the attorney comes back almost inevitably and says, oh man, I totally get it. I got my family, I got this thing. I'm trying to balance things myself. Thank you. And I give you a lot of kudos for saying that. That's what I'll get most often.
Yeah, no, that's true. That's true. And salespeople and attorneys, usually people are going to presume and assume the worst.
Yeah. Right? And we're both very similar, actually, in many, many ways. We're both highly good at debating, highly good at influencing people, persuading people to see it their way. Right. I mean, that's kind of, especially if you talk about a litigator, that is their whole mantra. I've got to convince either this judge, 3, 6, 10, 12 people, whatever the case may be, of my position.
Right.
Yeah. Here's a quick one. What's the craziest thing you've ever done? Doesn't matter if everybody knows, just what's the craziest thing that DeAnn has ever done?
I don't really want to say.
All right. Well, don't say. No, fair enough. How about this one?
I won't say starting my own law practice seemed crazy at the time. My husband sure thought I was crazy.
No, I get it. How about this one? What's a strange quirk, or maybe a strange habit, if you will, or maybe just a hobby that you do? It doesn't have to be strange, right? But something that you do that maybe not everybody knows.
Well, I'd say, I've been trying, at this stage, I turned 50, I kind of hit that corner, and kids off to college. So
50, May 19th, by the way.
Woo-hoo!
72.
Yeah, I mean,
are you 72?
Really, what?
Are you 72? Are you 1972?
70.
70. Okay. So you got me by a little bit. I was going to give you a congrats on the year of the just so you know, I celebrated in love. I'm not kidding. I'm not just saying it so people think it. I have social channels. I loved the fact that I turned 50. I thought it was one of the most amazing days of my life. Please go.
It was a little scary for me. But what the point being is, so I've really tried to, so I've made a concerted effort to find activities, frankly, that I kind of forgot about. I'm trying to tap back into my creativity. Right? Yeah, because I got so busy. But so what I've really been spending time on is I like to go and take photographs of flowers.
You and my wife will get along great.
So I'll go to a botanical garden.
Yeah.
Take photos of, just on my iPhone, take pictures of flowers. And then I've never had an art class, but I've been trying to paint
I was getting ready to say either drawing or painting. I could see where you were going. Do you take the same pictures that you took and then try to reproduce them in a painting?
Yeah. I'll take a picture and then I'll, kind of set it there and then try, and I try is the word, to recreate the same thing that's in the photograph on the canvas. So
that's awesome, though. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, here's an easy one for you. Just a couple more, and then we're almost done. So, where are you from, and what was it like growing up there?
So I'm originally from Northern California, and but my dad worked for General Motors, so I came from a very blue collar background. My dad worked on the assembly line in General Motors. My mom drove a school bus, and then when the General Motors plant closed in Northern California, Fremont, and my dad got transferred to Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. So I moved to Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, the beginning of my 8th grade year. And it was total culture shock.
Oh, yeah.
And then my parents separated beginning of my senior year. So I started a new senior year back in Northern California. But I was there long enough to get in-state tuition for UC Berkeley. So,
that's awesome.
Yeah. So I went to Cal and studied rhetoric. It's like, what do you do with a degree in rhetoric from Berkeley? You go to law school.
Right.
So so that was my upbringing was very, very blue collar. You work for what you get, and
actions speak louder than words. That's kind of one of my mantras in my world. So.
Sure.
Here's one for you. So it's kind of a dual prong. What is your favorite podcast and your favorite conference?
I actually don't listen a whole bunch to podcasts. Cool. But the ones that I do follow are marketing podcasts. Gotcha. Different
entrepreneurial based for the I get it.
Yeah, entrepreneurial podcasts. Marketing, memberships and lead generation and social media and all that kind of stuff. So I kind of like that stuff. No, and and as far as conferences go, I like to go to conferences usually where there are other business owners, and just
still more of that marketing side kind of thing, learning how to get more.
Learning how to get more business, but then also while I'm there, sharing experiences with other business owners. Oh yeah, the not necessarily lawyers, but there are usually some lawyers there as well. But those are the ones I like.
Yeah, when I go to those, I 100% agree. Again, I love going to those because, again, one of the things that keeps me doing what I do and doing what I consider doing well, right, is that I can never stop learning. I feel like the day we stop learning is the day we stop living.
True.
And
very true.
So when I go to conferences like that, I'm usually looking to not only, I know that I'm going to share my experience because I don't stop talking and I have to get the gab. I don't shut up. It's just what it is. But I try to tell myself, I have to remind myself as soon as somebody's engaged, I'll have to stop and be like, hey, man, enough about me. What have you found to be the most, and just ask them because I won't shut up, but I want to find out because every time I meet anybody that's in, whether it's law or marketing or somehow, a variation or offspring of it, there's something to be learned and gained.
Always. Well, and I'm always trying to learn how to do things more efficiently.
Right.
And, quicker, easier, faster.
Automation is a beautiful thing and delegation is a beautiful thing. You just have to know when and where to use them.
Right. And delegation is really, again, hard for us control freaks.
Oh, yeah. I'm a control freak too. I should have been an attorney, just so you know. I should.
But again, we need to delegate. You have to. And we need to just accept that it will not be done as well as if we had done it ourselves. But
that's okay.
And it's okay. And it's okay. And if you allocate an hourly value to your services, then it does not make sense for you to be spending the value of that hour, doing a social media post or whatever, or doing your own billing. Oh, God forbid. Lawyers are horrible. They want to do so much stuff on their own. They want to write their own blogs and they want to.
Yes. Oh, true. Are you telling me I do content creation for you folks?
Yes.
They're like, what if I write it? Hey, man, I got no problem, but I'm going to need you to write like 4,500 words a month minimum, because if I don't put those up, then your site isn't going to rank well because it's not consistent content. Oh, I'll get them to you. No,
And they don't.
No, because they don't have the time. They don't have the time to do everything they want to put on their calendar.
Nor should they, and nor should they be spending the time on that.
Like you said, and we both said, delegation it's one of the best things an attorney can learn to do.
I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but definitely it does not make sense for a lawyer to sit in front of their computer writing their own blogs, even if they think it's fun and enjoyable. And by the way they write them is sometimes too legal. For the marketplace.
You can't write legalese to here's two facts that most attorneys don't take into account. Number one, the average reading level is between 9th and 11th. There's debate on that, but somewhere between 9th and 11th grade. So not even a full high school worth of, right? Even on the highest end. But
that's an interesting statistic, actually. Yeah.
What most people don't know, furthermore, is that there's not human eyes reading your content anymore as far as the ranking. It is a piece of AI that is at best on a 5th grade level. So if your content goes much beyond 5th grade level anymore, you stand a chance, particularly in the legal world, of not ranking well because Google doesn't know what the heck you're talking about. They cannot have eyes on every website anymore. So they had to build a piece of AI that literally reads a site in seconds, right, and deciphers it. But all that sounds great, and until you remember that this is a 5th grade level. They haven't even gotten out of elementary school yet, right?
And those are some really interesting statistics. That, like I said, I just learned some things myself,
right?
But just substantiates. I mean, look, I was a rhetoric major in college, and I've always felt like I was a good writer. It's like that was always my strength. But
you can write up.
I could write, but I should not be writing my own blogs now.
And if I may interject this too, most of the times the attorneys don't know how to put the keywords in the way that they flow the best, if you will. So sometimes I've read articles by attorneys where all this looked great, but then it's like you almost just listed off keywords to make sure that.
Yeah, either they rattle them off or they stick them all in the bottom.
So I can help you with this.
Right. I mean, there's a difference. And I guess it all comes down to, though, is knowing your market, right? Yes. Because some lawyers, they get their business from other lawyers. Mm-hmm. In which case, you're going to write an academic article at a very high level.
Why wouldn't you?
Right. And you're gonna try to get it published in like a legal publication.
It's going to give you a lot of credibility, and somebody of the higher, if that's your market particularly, then you want that to be out there. Well, we tell the same thing to people. I have a few guys that do write, and I'm like, look, you writing makes sense. You're only trying to get a certain amount of cases from Fortune 5,000 companies. So the people that you're trying to get to are all very well educated, sitting at the top of companies, in chief positions. So you really have to, again, you cater to your market and you write to your market. Most attorneys, though, I will say, are trying to get leads traditionally when someone searches for their practice area and they're looking for that attorney. And when you're doing that, that content, but like you say, if it's really more of like it's what I call an online business card, right? That you really you could care less if it gets ranked. It's really there for the people that talk to you and know you. Mm-hmm. And that should almost always be pretty much, produced by you, because that's very intimate back and forth, right? Only certain people are going to see it, and really only the ones you want, kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, we could talk for years on this kind of stuff, but definitely it's important to be you, right? And to make sure that, so that's always that fine line when you're putting your content in, is that you want it to be you, but you don't want it to be you. Right. I mean, you don't need to do it to make it convey, it's not easy to find somebody who's
not. What would you say is your best piece of advice from a single mentor?
Well, from a single mentor, there was a wonderful man that many lawyers may know. His name's Stephen Fairley.
Did you say Stephen Fairley?
Stephen Fairley.
Fairley. Okay.
Yeah. And he passed away a few years ago. But so what he said is, market like a specialist, practice like a generalist. Because for me, I say I'm a generalist in a world of specialists, right? Lawyers are usually very specialized, and I have a law firm where I provide general counsel. And so I've always struggled with, you can't be everything to everyone. So how do I convey to to business owners all the different types of legal services I can provide? And so I thought that was really great.
No, like I'm literally market like a specialist,
practice like a generalist.
Yep. I was trying to get a piece of paper as fast as I could.
I know. Words of wisdom.
Like a generalist.
Yeah. So, I mean, because we as law firms, and we provide a lot of different services, but when we try to go out there and tell people all the different things that we do, we just get lost in all the noise.
They get overwhelmed too. The folks on the other side can get overwhelmed if everybody's, spouting off 15, 20 things that they're good at.
Mm-hmm.
And, it really actually the reason I wrote that down is that mantra is, you could use that in really nearly any type of marketing. And what I mean by that is, go in with a specialty that obviously sets you apart as a master of your domain, but be willing to always open yourself to doing other things. Because most of the time what I found is that even if we haven't done them before, but they're in our arena, we end up doing them quite well. It might have to spend a little more time the first time, but then now I have a new door, I have a new bit of knowledge, and I have a new avenue that people can, use me for, that I'm going to now include in my marketing, but not in a direct way. Right. And when I say include in my marketing, that would be if someone writes me an email and says, hey, I see you specialize in this, but this is the case. Hey, you know what? I actually just did a case like that. I know exactly what we need to do.
Right. No, it's really true. And just, they say you just need to, they say the dollars are in the niches, or however they say that.
Riches and niches. There you go.
And I guess it's true to a certain extent. It's a matter of narrowing down.
Limit yourself.
You need to know who your audience is.
Yes.
Right. Which is basic rhetoric 101. Is who is your audience? And then, where are they and what are they reading? And you need to speak to them. And sometimes if we're speaking to too many people at one time, then we're just, I have a mentor now that recently said to me, because I was talking to him about Facebook advertising. And I said, well, I'd like to do some Facebook advertising. And he talked about really specializing down, narrowing it down to who your ideal client is and all that sort of thing. Because he said, he used the analogy of you're in a big auditorium and you're in the corner and you've got your, maybe you have a bullhorn or not, saying, here I am. Right. And he compared that to like walking into, a smaller room with, more qualified people and saying, here I am, and, but anyway, so.
No, I will give you this only if you're starting to look at Facebook. It's a lot of attorneys, they hear all the great things about social, and there's a lot of potential there for good things. But one thing to keep in mind, I only remind you this and remind my listeners.
Sure.
It's very rare that someone goes to Facebook to find their attorney. However, what they will do, and what we have seen be very advantageous to attorneys, is being part of like groups. And what I mean by that is this is really exactly what you're talking about, right?
Because smaller rooms.
Right. If you're just on Facebook saying all this, nobody's going to hear it. But if you're on Facebook and you become a part of, let's say, a sewing group, or you become a part of a skiing group, or you become a part of a film group, right? Because that's your interest, and you go with your interest, because you can't make this up. You cannot lie your way into their hearts. So you find something that is of interest to you, go find that group, only talk about that, but constantly remind them, hey, if you ever need this, I'm here for you. Those people will reach out to you when the time is right and when they feel comfortable, because it's a roundabout way of letting them know, hey, I'm an expert in this, but man, do I love skiing. What about that mountain this past weekend? Wasn't that, it's what we have found is the way to actually get lead conversion from Facebook and these other places. Otherwise, really what you're doing is mostly awareness and really more of just an awareness campaign, letting people know, and kind of consistency. So it just doesn't pay off the same way. But of course, your ads are much cheaper on Facebook. I'll say that, because they're not clicking through to a page where they're, filling out your name.
Right.
It is fun.
Well, but I've also heard it said that people are not going to Facebook to look for lawyers, right? They're going to Facebook, and that's just kind of on point with what you're saying as well, is they're on Facebook because, they're connecting with their family, their friends, they're looking at, some of their social activities. So that makes perfect sense. If you have a ski group and you just happen to be in there, then that's a better way to make contact. I mean, I don't know, as a lawyer, as a business owner, I still, I'm always trying to figure out the best, obviously just revisit, who is my ideal client? Who do I work with the best? Who am I trying to reach? And then how, in creating I'm creating legal products that serve, so for me, I'm trying to reach those 4 million, people. So it's a big pool, right? Of those 4 million people that use an online DIY service, right?
Right.
So but my ideal client is just one small subset of all those people who are ultimately business owners who want to make sure they do things the right way. Right. So, they know if they use that type of a service, they know that they know they know that they don't know everything. And those are my clients. So, but finding them
is not easy.
It's not easy because it's very hard to pinpoint, who your ideal client is. And then once you do that, finding where they are.
Here's a good idea. And I'll leave the conversation with this, but maybe writing some blogs on what do you do when, and you can obviously with these blogs, I would name them by name, right? Okay. I'm not going to do it now, but what do you do when what do you do when you use so-and-so.com and shit doesn't go well?
Right.
Right. And I say that because there's so many different articles. You know what I'm talking about. You can literally start them all off the same. You could have a series based on, when you use the big houses, these are some of the problems you may. I would actually think about doing that because I guarantee you people are searching. It's not going to be the high searches, right? But when people do find you, they'll probably end up finding that as well on your website and see, hey, this is what I'm going through. I use these guys to start an LLC and nothing is going right. Everything is a bumble F. And I really need to fix it. I wish I would have done this before, but now I found somebody who understands my pain, my problems, and they're willing to help me, even though I made the wrong decision in the beginning.
I'm going to add that to my to-do list.
I don't ever give anything away that I don't find useful. You can take it or leave it, but it's something I would do, and it's something I would tell my attorneys to do. Quite frankly, if they were trying to, particularly when you're trying to convey a message that a lot of people ignore.
Right. Yeah, because there is so much noise out there, and that's the bottom line. Trying to be. And
that's again, that article too. I haven't seen a lot of attorneys doing it. It always works well when you actually name a big house by name because you get automatic ranking power with it. Not to mention the fact that you're also coming from a different angle that, hey, I know they say it's going to be, maybe that's a good one. Yeah. They say it's going to be great when you use these. What do you do when it's not,
Right. Or what's next?
Or what? Yeah. Or I use them and I haven't had any problems yet, but I'm really scared. I don't know my next step.
Shoe to drop.
Right. I don't know that. I don't know my next steps, and I can't. Nobody over there will tell me my next steps.
Right.
So, hey, listen, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for joining. Maybe we can think about having like a year from now, we can do a follow up and see where things are with the firm now that it'll be 16 years old.
Sure. Awesome. Love to talk to you then. Yeah.
Thank you so much for stopping by. And with that said, everyone, I will see you on the next episode of 15 Minutes, Share Your Voice. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to 15 Minutes. Be sure to subscribe and we'll see you next time.